What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Martian and Ozzy podcast. I am the Martian. I'm joined by Ozzy as always. What's going on this week, Ozzy?
Yeah, man, hot off. We were waiting quite a while for a pay-per-view level card, and I think last week definitely delivered, especially closing out with that main event between Alex and T City, who just couldn't finish that triangle, broke my heart. But you had a great weekend. I just skimmed through profits. So how did you wrap up last week?
Yeah, thank you for that good shout out. I did beat Ozzy this weekend in the Bet MMA profit. Only the second week out of 8 weeks that it's happened so far, so he's definitely up on me. 3.84 unit win on the week for me. Marlon, or excuse me, Marab, Hooker, and Volkanovski came through big for me, and a few underdogs on the card. And great points by Ozzy. It was a great pay per view card. The main event was amazing. Marab versus Moraes was amazing. And, Ozzy's a little bit down on himself, but the guy still profited. He still hasn't lost. I mean, I think he's only lost like one time on this entire podcast. So he's still giving out winning bets. So um, don't feel too bad about it, Ozzy. I think you'll be back on the winning spectrum this week.
Vio getting iced in that first round just totally fucked me. But as always with me, I feel I really do well on the preliminary cards. I find value there always. Pierce is my biggest bet of the night. Just got more and more confident in him. And then I got I might have fanboyed out a little bit with the jiu-jitsu guys, Nick and Ortega. Although I do not regret that Ortega bet that much at plus 175. And then I also was on Hooker, and unfortunately I faded the blue in Chris Dawkins, and Shamil. Shamil paid for it. He I don't know what he did to all these guys while he's been out, but he took a beat down last Saturday.
Got knocked out twice.
I knocked out probably 3 times, but I'm ready. I'm ready to put that card behind me. Had a nice contender series 2 nights ago, and I'm excited about this card and October as a whole for sure.
Yeah, true, true. You did do well in that contender series. I think you told me 5 bets and four of them won. So I guess that's pretty good, right? 80% of wins. But that's gonna do it for the recap of last week. We're gonna get into this week's card. This is the Thiago Santos versus Johnny Walker card. 13 fights going down from the Apex this Saturday. It starts early, 4 p.m. Eastern time. And overall, the card's not too strong, but we have a few betting leans we feel strong about. We're going to get into the first fight, bantamweight division. Some guys who haven't fought in a few years. Alejandro Perez taking on Johnny Eduardo. We're seeing Perez minus 235, Eduardo plus 200. I'll let you start this one off, Ozzy. What are you thinking about these older bantamweights here?
These are two guys I did not. I didn't know what happened to Alex Perez after Alejandro Perez after he got knocked out by Song Yadong last time. Was a fight where I think he just got caught. Really underestimating the speed and was countered pretty quickly there. But I thought that Cody Stamann fight, he showed himself pretty well there, and was competitive overall. Had Cody a bit hesitant to shoot in on the legs. I think he went 0 for 8 on takedowns in that fight, but he wasn't too accurate with his punches. On this fight as a whole, I don't have too much. Johnny Eduardo is a strange guy. Hasn't won a fight since in about 5 years here, so I'm very surprised that he is back. For a fight. I like, taking guys at, plus 200 and better if I see like a path to victory or I'm high on their skills. And Eduardo does look like he's in shape, but I just can't, gamble even at that plus number. So it's going to be a definite pass for me. Maybe a look at, I wouldn't even say props like doing overs or anything like that. It's just a strange fight. I do think Alejandro Perez is the rightful favorite here. And maybe he'll chip away here at Eduardo and maybe score a late finish would be my prediction.
It's hard to be confident in either side here with the layoffs. Perez, 2.5 years, Eduardo, over 3 years. And you brought up some good points about Perez. The guy's a solid boxer. He's a pretty good defensive grappler as well. And the only real issue with him is he doesn't have the highest output, but I do think he is, a pretty solid boxer. Eduardo in his last fight was facing Nathaniel Wood, who that was his UFC debut. Woods actually turned out to be pretty good, and Eduardo hurt him badly in round one. I think the guy's offensive striking is still there. I still think he can hurt opponents early on. It just seems like he fades as the fight goes on. So I think Eduardo is going to have an early window here, especially with Perez coming off just as long of a layoff. I think if Eduardo comes out aggressive and puts some hands on Perez, I think he could possibly turn it into a finish. And there's also a good chance that Eduardo is just done, 43 years old at this lower weight class. That's not a good recipe. So there's a good chance Perez just knocks him out early as well. So I think the fight not starting round two is like plus 235. That's a good stab for this fight. And I think the value side, money line wise, is Eduardo. I think that he's going to start fast and he's going to look a little bit better than 2-1. And he really does have a chance for an early finish here because Perez is just kind of underwhelming, not really the guy to push the pace. And I think this isn't the worst matchup for Eduardo. And last piece of information here, doing some Instagram cap and looking at their Instagrams, I see Johnny Eduardo in Nova União. He's training in Brazil with good training partners, a lot of gym pics. Alejandro Perez, barely seeing any footage of him in the gym, like one video of him lifting weights, but I put some stock into that, you know. If you were in the gym, you'd be taking selfies. Ozzy a couple months back picked against Bam Malecki based on her Instagram, and it ended up being completely accurate. So
Very accurate.
don't discount that. And speaking of low level females, we're gonna move on to the next fight in the bantamweight division, where we have Stephanie Egger minus 130, Shayna Young plus 110. This line has flipped. Was Young as the favorite. Egger is now the favorite, and I'll pass this one back to you, Ozzy. I know you have some strong thoughts about this one, so take over this
When
elite level breakdown.
Whenever I see women's fights, man, it just I gravitate immediately to the plus money. And I guess people did originally as well because they took Stephanie Egger, they saw her, her plus money and they, shot it down. But at this point, there's no way that you can lay juice on Stephanie Egger. Like, right now, if you're looking at this line, it's favored to go to distance at a 2-1 clip. Stephanie Egger, she just does not look like to me a girl that wins decisions. In her last fight against Cortez, she didn't put up much of a fight at all. She got judo tripped herself, right? She hit her with that inside reap. Cortez did, and just her reaction times are incredibly slow. She didn't attempt any. She didn't do anything in that fight at all. From bottom, from top, from any different position. Her stand up to me looks incredibly robotic. She doesn't look like she likes getting hit. If you look back at an old fight of hers versus Alexa Connors in Invicta, she basically gave up in the third round after getting hit in the body a couple times. She like spit out her mouthpiece, and the ref like stopped it while Alexa Connors is hitting her to help her put her mouthpiece back in, and then started the fight. Should have been a stoppage, and somehow Alexa Connors almost lost that split decision. Crazy, but I don't think she likes getting hit. Now, Young, on the other hand, I think people are fading her just because they saw that Sarah Alpar choked her out in Contenders, which is a totally legitimate reasoning and rationale. But I mean, if you look at that first round, Shayna Young, is on top. She gets out of some compromising positions. She's looking for a Darce choke at the end of it. And then in the Macy Chiasson fight, she was in there on very, very short notice. Chiasson's super big, and much more aggressive than Stephanie Egger is, and that was a pretty high paced fight. And I saw that Young showed me that she has her hands are active. She throws strikes, and if she's coming in with a similar kind of cardio than she did in that fight, I think that she's gonna be able to pull this fight away. Now I know that she had a baby last year and all that stuff, but to me, she looks in shape. She looks like a girl who consistently, works out hard. And just Egger, I just don't like anything I've seen from her. She made her debut 6 years ago. I don't think she looks any better at all. And she's not reliable to me to do anything. And if you're favoring this fight to go to distance, I really don't think that you'll favor her in the third round or to just win 2 out of 3 rounds. So I side with Young here. I'm hoping for this price to continue to go up on the plus money side, and then I'll take a stab and have at least one unit on her because I just think she's the more well-rounded MMA fighter and the more committed fighter as well.
I don't have nearly as much conviction in my thoughts about this fight as Hazi does, but I'm actually leaning the other way towards Edgar. I think both these women are just so bad. Their striking skill is so bad. There's no way to predict who's going to be the better fighter on the feet. And I think that Edgar's wrestling, her grappling is the most reliable path on either side here. With how bad Young's takedown defense is, I just think that um, 1 or 2 attempts at a takedown from Edgar should be enough to get her down to the floor, and, I just side with Edgar winning the fight from top, so not a whole lot of analysis on my end here. I'm just siding with Edgar to outgrapple Young to a decision, and I'm surprised, Ozzy, you're not valuing the ADCC competition from Edgar
Bro,
too much,
it's
huh?
not it's not a steep climb get to ADCC on that side, especially on the female side, especially when you can win a trials in like Sweden and Europe and get in. Now, these days, a little bit, the women's game is catching up more. But in 2018, when she qualified for that, and like nobody, the competition is not stiff at all. Gabby Garcia wins it all the time. Like it's not stiff or difficult to get there. And I
I
looked at
think
let me tell you one other thing. I looked at Stephanie Egger's judo career. There's actually someone keeps track of there's a site that keeps track of the win loss records, and I think she was like 35% win percentage. You can verify this. I don't know what site it was, but did see this.
Yeah, that clip of Edgar like hitting a throw on Gabby Garcia single-handedly made that line versus Tracy Cortez close. Um, I didn't remember it being that short. Cortez closed minus 147. That's crazy. And
I
she
had
she won
Cortez
every
there.
she won every second of that fight. That's gonna move us on to the next fight, which is in the men's bantamweight division. We have Douglas De Silva de Andrade taking on Gastian-Pirrello. I pronounced that first name wrong, but oh well. Sorry, Mr.
Gaetano,
Pirrello. What is it? Gaetano?
Gaetano. Yeah, let's go with that.
Oh yeah,
Gaetano.
easy. Gaetano. Okay, so the line for this one, Andrade minus 250, Perello plus 210. So Perello seems to be mostly an offensive striker from what I've seen. He did beat up some lower level guys in the European regional scene, but I don't think the guy is very skilled at any aspect of MMA. I mean, his offensive striking is definitely his best, but I don't see much defense on the other end. And I think his takedown defense, his positional awareness on the ground is really bad. Ricky Simone, not a guy known for finishing fights. He even was able to find a finish on Perello. I mean, that was a complete mismatch, so you can't give the guy too much criticism there. But he's facing DeAndrade here, who is another older fighter, hasn't won many fights recently, but he's still a tough out. You saw that in the Murphy fight. Making it to the decision there in that fight was an accomplishment of his own. And, Perillo would have been, knocked out in the first round of that fight. That was at 145 too. Andrade going back down to his natural weight class at 135. And I just think that he should win the fight any way he wants to. I think he should have a striking advantage, huge experience advantage. He's still very durable, and he probably could even outgrapple Perillo if he wanted to. So Andrade should cover his price pretty handily here, and he might even find a finish. Do you think Andrade has a chance at a late finish here? Or you think this one's going to decision, Ozzy?
Man, I like Andrade here. Just a quick fact check on the Edgar judo record, 43%. But anyway, getting into this fight, Andrade, I like him in that fight against Murphy. He hit Murphy with some tremendous body shots that you see hurt Murphy a little bit, like just not wobbled him, but made him like, oh shit, that was, and that was with kicks, punches, offbeat timing, plenty, and he's fought at 135 comfortably, I would say, before. I mean, the guy's a physical specimen. He has pretty explosive striking. He's got pretty good leg kicks. He's very durable overall. It took Peter Yan. Peter Yan couldn't even stop him. The ref had to cease that fight. And I feel that he throws in combination well. He'll throw head kicks, and he has a pretty good gas tank overall. And he's pretty tough. So and in the grappling realm as well, he has some explosive takedowns. I think if these guys end up scrambling, he's going to be able to outmaneuver Gaetano overall. And what I think that he would probably will have to look out for. Gaetano does have some good knees that he comes in with. In the first round, I think he's going to be spunky, if for lack of a better word. Like I think he's going to be looking to, he definitely got embarrassed in that Ricky Simone fight, and it was on short notice, if I remember correctly. But Ricky was able to just put the screws to him once he got him down to the ground comfortably. But overall, I don't think that he's going to have too much for Andrade at distance. I think Andrade will be able dictate the pace much more. I think he'll be able to counter him much more, get that timing, and then start to attack Gaetano from all different angles. And then yes, if he does take it to the ground, I do think that he could progress position and finish with whether it be ground and pound or a submission. And I think this line is probably a little bit short. I was interested at him when this line was even shorter. This guy's 26-4, has fought really really top level competition, and I think it's going to be this is definitely a uphill battle for Gaetano in his second career UFC fight.
Interesting props here. We got Andrade submission plus 2,000.
Oh, it's
Perillo knockout. I don't see him winning the fight any way besides knockout plus 550. Perillo round one plus 900 as well. So I feel like if you're betting Perillo, you might as well take him by knockout or the early prop finishes because I cannot see him beating Andrade as the fight goes. That just seems very unlikely. And that's going to move us on to the next fight in the lightweight division. We have Devontae Smith as the minus 147 favorite, taking on Jamie Mullarkey as the plus 127 dog. American versus Australian here. You could start this one off, Ozzy. What are your thoughts?
been tossing and turning about this fight. I think this is one of my favorite ones on the prelims. Smith here, the guy has a lot of good tools to him, good reach, very quick, definitely has a lot of power in his hands. But the glaring holes is, you're not sure about his ground game. He got dominated by John Gunther in the regional scene and held down very easily. And then in the UFC, he hasn't, fought too many guys that were I think that a lot of the guys that he fought were kind of scared of him a little bit or just didn't have any chins. Joseph Lowry disappointed me, right off the bat on Contender. But the other guys, like, you just haven't seen too much adversity, come the way of Smith. Some stuff that I see, I think he might be potentially a little bit chinny. Here at 155, he's never fought a guy that was committed to grappling with him, and he comes across a guy in Jamie Mullarkey who was able to finally get his first UFC win in that last fight against Worthy. He did a lot of good things in those 46 seconds that I liked. That I really like, that I think would bodes well for him in the future. I'm definitely high on him. I think he accounted himself well versus both Ziam and Brad Riddell there. He's got good counters. My biggest issue here is that I think that he needs this fight on the ground at some point to win this. And he's not a guy who's gonna who usually puts you down with too much authority. Takedown wise, he kind of needs to get a clinch. Start looking for like trips and things like that to slow you down. And that might give Smith that close range where he could fire off a few shots and frustrate him. But I mean, I think that this line, I've been watching it all week. It was climbing over plus 140, and then has now steadily come down. I do think more money will start coming in on Smith, and I'm not interested in laying the juice on him and finding out that one, he's super chinny, two, he can get countered and put on the back foot, and three, his ground game is still shitty. And you don't know his cardio because he hasn't really been into third round or a second round even that's very competitive. So I kind of like Jamie Mullarkey here. I think that he'll be able to counter Smith. I think he'll be able to make him go backwards at different points in this fight. And then if he does get in on those hips and he is able to put him flat on his back, I don't think that Smith is going to have a lot of opportunity or a lot of ways out that are not giving up more advantageous positions. And then once Jamie Marquez is nasty, dude. He goats you to come back at him and throw shots. He's getting frustrated when ZM was circling around so much. So I think Smith will oblige him in throwing in some cases, and I think it'll give opportunity for Mullarkey to slip under and shoot in on the legs or come with counter strikes like he did versus Worthy. So I'm gonna side with Jamie Mullarkey.
This fight seems pretty simple to me. I mean, one guy knocked out Combo Worthy, the other guy got knocked out by Combo Worthy. I mean, MMA math points to Malarkey being a lock here, and I'm inclined to agree. Malarkey extremely durable, took an absolute beating from Brad Riddell, and kept coming forward in that fight. And I don't think that Smith is that great of a fighter. I think the guy has had a lot of his success by round one knockout, and he's not really proven in tough fights. He's not really proven to turn the fight around if it's not going his way. So that's a huge concern because Mullarkey is the type of guy to lose a round and then just come right back out and get right back to work trying to implement his game plan. He's no stranger to losing or coming from behind. Smith, on the other hand, very untested in that area. And, in every bettor's mind has been the John Gunther loss on Smith's record. Gunther is a very robotic and unathletic fighter, and even he was able to outgrapple Smith in that fight. So, logic points to another dedicated grappler being able to do the same thing. And bettors have been waiting for a grappler to come against Smith. And I think that Malarkey is capable enough of a grappler. He's persistent enough with his takedowns. I think he's pretty solid on top. Nothing crazy. I'm sure you would agree, Ozzy. Milwaukee's nothing like immaculate on top, but I think that he should have the persistence, the toughness, and the wrestling grit to just keep trying to get this fight to the floor. And Mullarkey isn't completely out of his depth in the feet. I definitely think he'll be at a disadvantage, but I'm just not really sold on Smith as this elite knockout artist. I know he did get a few first round knockouts, elite win in Julian Erosa, but that was at 155. Arosa's wrong weight class. So be it. I would pick Arosa in a rematch. As I'm sure you would, Ozzy. We got to go with Juicy J, no matter what. But I'm just not impressed with Smith, so I'll take the plus money on Malarkey as well. We're in agreement with this one, and I'll side
Oh,
with.
I don't trust the jiu-jitsu training at Factory X either. I think Brandon Royval might be the head instructor over there. So I don't
Really,
trust.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah.
Joking about that, but I don't like after seeing Cody Brundage last week too with his ground game. I don't trust him, man.
Yeah, not a great look. Although, alternate universe Brundage wins that fight 29-28. I stand by that. But that's gonna take us to the next fight. And this is honestly a very emotional moment for me on the podcast. This is Betch Correia's retirement fight, one of the greatest female fighters of all time. Has been my profile picture on Twitter for like 6 months. Very upsetting time in the MMA community. We got Carol Rosa minus 600 taking on Betch Correia plus 400, and they're not giving her any favors on her way out. They're giving her an extremely tough matchup on her way out the door. And unfortunately for Betch, I think she is kind of drawing dead here. I don't think that um, she has any real threat to Rosa. I mean, I guess if the fight stays standing, if it's just a kickboxing fight, Betch could win, but she's so hittable. She has no concept of defense. I mean, she is extremely durable and she can eat 100 punches a fight, no problem, but she just has no concept of avoiding the strikes. She's not a great defensive wrestler. Shajara Eubanks really took her down easily in round one before Shajara gassed out. Probably the most embarrassing moment of Eubanks' career was losing that fight to Betch. But I think Rosa should be pretty safe to cover her price here. I mean, the woman throws a lot of output. I mean, she's pumping out output on the feet. She shoots takedowns. She lands a lot of ground and pound. And she's actually pretty good on top. She unleashes a lot of shots. Probably could have got a TKO in both rounds one and two of the Vanessa Mello fight. But you got to kind of wonder about Rose's finishing abilities. If she wasn't able to finish Mello there and wasn't able to finish Edwards, she might not be able to finish anybody. So this one's probably going to go to the decision, and it's probably going to be a pretty lopsided decision for Rosa, like a 30-25, 30-26 type of fight. So if you like Betchy, just do it by decision, plus 700 on her decision line. I don't see her winning any other way. And very sad day to see Betch go. Are you sharing the same feelings as me, Ozzy, in this one?
Not quite. I just find I'm sad Betch Kohei is leaving. She's freaking hilarious. Like just her whole demeanor, before the fight, during the fight, and after the fight. I will definitely miss it. Um, but she's coming in here against Carol Rosa, where I think her best chance. I mean, listen, it could happen. Just the thing is, Carol Rosa, she was set to fight Sajara back in June. She had a bad weight cut. She couldn't make the weight. She had to pull out of the fight. So if you're Betch, I guess you have to hope for Carol just coming in not in the best way. But let's be honest, man. Carol Rosa, her last 2 wins are against Vanessa Mello and Jocelyn Edwards, okay? You know, you can knock, Betch-Correia all you want, but I think she would beat those same 2 girls, as well, and most of the girls that she's fought, I want to like, nobody thought that, I don't think that anybody thought that, Betch was going to beat, Sijara Eubanks, so I'll give her maybe a little slight chance, you know, it's getting, you know, at plus, 400, I think, I guess there's worse ways to invest your money, but you know, I don't mind using Carol as a parlay piece. You know, she's just gonna out volume bet so much. But both these girls are pretty hittable. I don't think that Carol is a epitome of defense either. She uses her offense as her defense. But the thing is, she's way quicker. She's strong. She should be stronger in the clinch. If she does choose to take Betch to the ground, I think she'll have a big advantage there as well. She has a reach advantage. So everything points to Carol Rosa. Not a fight that I'm going to be involved in the slightest bit, and I hope I to not even have to watch. And you know, but I would assume Carol Rosa, you know, gets this done. But you know, if you wanted to just have action on it and you wanted to fade Betch, you know, taking punches, you know, Carol Rosa knockout is plus 500, which is not terrible.
Yeah, plus 500, not a bad stab. I know I had some hesitancies over playing it earlier in my discussion, but still, plus 500, not a bad number. She doesn't really go for submissions either. It seems like ground and pound is mostly her forte, so not a bad stab there. Moving on to the third of four women's fights in this card, we have your girl Casey O'Neil minus 215, Antonina Shevchenko plus 185. This one is in the women's flyweight division. I'll let you
Interesting fight.
start this one off,
Interesting fight.
Ozzy.
Very interesting fight. You know, Casey O'Neil goes from Shanna Dobson to Laura Procopio to now Antonina Shevchenko. So, you know, pretty quick rise for her, I would say, just because Antonina, I don't know, I don't really hawk the rankings, but I would think that she would have been ranked top 15 at some point. I don't know if she is now. But Casey, you know, she's 23 only or going on 24. And she's going into a fight with Antonina, who as bad as Antonina looked in that Andrea Lee fight, you know, there were some just really funny moments, like in the I think it was the end of the first round I don't remember when it was when you know Lee throws like a spinning back fist and then uh, Antonina grabs onto her and then Lee just immediately throws her with like a judo throw, like just like a weird exchange, and then you know that was like the beginning of the end if I remember correctly, because then you know eventually she locked up that triangle on her. But you know, if I'm looking at that fight, Antonina, I didn't think did that many things wrong or bad overall. You know, she toughed out that triangle for like 4 minutes. So, which shout out to her. I would have tapped way earlier. And she, you know, even when she's getting up and getting caught in that triangle, because she has the correct underhook and she's trying to, you know, get back up to her feet. Now, you know, she did get tripped kind of easily there. And the thing here when I'm seeing this fight is Casey O'Neil, you know, she does have some leg attacks. You know, she will grab onto a single leg, she will go to a double leg, suck the hips out and stuff. But I feel in women's MMA, a lot of these girls rely on the clinch quite often a lot. And you did see some clinching against Laura Procopio, where Antonina, I think, is going to be pretty strong in the clinch, stronger than anyone Casey's ever fought before. She's gonna have way sharper punches than anyone that Casey's ever fought before. And Casey kind of doesn't move her head at all. You know, she's down to mix it up quite a bit. And I think that Antonina has a lot of tools be able to combat the aggression that Casey's gonna bring. So I think that you know the line at minus 215 is way too much. I don't see how this she could be favored this highly. Because even if this does get to the ground, you know I know she is aggressive. That's the thing. She's just super aggressive. But I think physically she has some maturing to do. You know, I'm not going to get too much into aesthetics, but you know, there's some I think that you know she could tighten up. I think she could get bigger, drop a little bit of body fat, and be a real problem at 125 in the future. But I think biting off maybe biting off a lot. You know, this girl's angry this week. She's saying that she's gonna beat Antonina's ass. It's gonna be bloody. That people are dumb for thinking that she can't win. Apparently, she lives in Vegas, but apparently she doesn't know that the betting line is she's a 2-1 favorite. So someone should tell her, or maybe you don't tell her. But I could not, even as much as I like Casey O'Neil as a fighter overall, and as much money as she made me against Laura, I can't get there at minus 200. And I do think Antonina is very. I might bet Antonina honestly if this goes back up to the plus 200 range. I think I'd be interested in her. And the under here is barely plus money, but I think these girls are gonna bang. I think Antonina wants to probably prove a point after that last performance, and Casey's definitely there to be hit.
Yeah, one of your better qualities, Ozzy, is that you don't really develop a lot of loyalty to these fighters. So you bet Procopio.
Especially on the women's side, man. I don't get it. From betting on women's tennis, I just know these women are so volatile. You got to get off the wagon early, man. You have to.
Yeah, so you bet Procopio pretty heavy versus McCann, then right in the next fight you bet against her and win on O'Neil, and now you're potentially betting against O'Neil here. But I mean, the lines are flip flopping. I mean, these women are going from plus 150 to minus 200 in their next fights. There is reason to be skeptical. And Shevchenko, I just feel like she's kind of dumb. I feel like she doesn't really fight that well. Um, uh, Her past 5 fights have all had like a ton of grappling in them, even though she is a striker. I mean, she did initiate the grappling in the Pudilova and the Lipsky fight. She can be a somewhat effective offensive grappler when her opponents are really bad. Do you hear any sirens in the background? Hold on.
Just now.
Entertain the people for a sec. All right. So Shevchenko, like her fights are constantly involving grappling, even though she is mostly a striker. Their fights are always going to the floor, and I feel at some point in this fight, it's just going to end up on the floor. And O'Neil is the better top position grappler. I think she's a little bit better from bottom as well. I mean, when you see Shevchenko put on her back, she really doesn't do well at getting off of her back. Meanwhile, we saw O'Neil on bottom of Procopio twice in that fight, and she was able to stand up both times. So I think that O'Neil was more proven on bottom. I think the striking should be sort of close here. I definitely give the advantage to Shevchenko, but O'Neil's aggressive. She throws out volume. She's tough as well. She ate some big shots from Procopio in round one and just weathered that storm and seems to have really good cardio as well because she pours it on late. She is not conservative with her cardio. She's looking to land ground and pound, looking to finish the fight in rounds 2 and 3. And I'll be picking her to do so here. I think she gets another late finish. Probably by submission, but tough fight to lay the. I wouldn't lay the chalk minus 200 on O'Neil. Um, you just
Just I
can't. You
just
just can't be doing that. Go ahead.
I just remembered that round three finish, like the beautiful crucifix, to pounding her head, caving her head in, to making her give your back, to locking up that rear naked choke and putting her to sleep. That was beautiful by O'Neil last time. Well, God,
Yeah,
that
yeah. I
was
mean,
so
the
good.
the chick is aggressive. I'll give her
That
that.
was so good.
And she knows. She seems to know when her opponent, like the tide, is turning as well. She seems to know when to pour it on. So for a woman who I was previously pretty skeptical of and her experience, she has grown on me, and I think that she is good enough of a grappler to be able to get this fight to the floor and to outgrapple Shevchenko to a finish.
This
So
girl's
I'll
good in transition. Let's look for a live bet opportunity. Hopefully, Shevchenko starts strong and we can fade
Yeah,
her there.
yeah, good point. Maybe like Shevchenko lands like some big flurry on the feet in round one, and
Mhm.
Casey looks bad, and then the tide turns again. Hopefully, but that's gonna bring us on to the best fight on the card, no question. The fight that we're both looking forward to the most in the lightweight division. We got Joe Solecki as the let's see here, minus 140 favorite. Astoria's own Jared Gordon plus 120. So Oz, you know a thing or two about Queens. Tell us what your thoughts are on this matchup for Jared Gordon.
Listen, man, I've walked around Queens for a bit, and I'm telling you, if you could survive that, what, out here like Jared Gordon did and didn't die, you could definitely survive this Joe Selecki ground game. Is all I'm gonna say. The thing here, if these guys both come from CFFC, if these guys are fighting in CFFC, Jared Gordon would be a minus 185 favorite over Joe Selecki, minus 160 at least. How these guys match up. Gordon's coming up from 145, but he's consistently shown incredible cardio, a very well-rounded game, a tons of volume. Joe Solecki, I like Joe Solecki. We've been in same grappling competitions on a number of occasions. Because he is from the Northeast and all. But matching up here with Gordon, I think is biting off more than he could chew. In these 3 fights that he's had in the UFC, Matt Wyman, an absolute shell of him, like a half a shell of himself in that fight. You just saw by just his muscle definition that this guy, had no business being in the UFC. And Joe wasn't able to get him out of there, but was able to show his dominant grappling against Hubbard. Hubbard just shows his back to everyone, and Joe showed the best skill that he has, which is definitely his back takes and then his rear naked choke and squeeze. He's definitely got a really really high level back take and ground ability there. But against Jim Miller, you see him coming in there. Striking is just incredibly awkward. He's throwing these leg kicks out that just are not going to hurt anyone, to be honest. And just some of the strikes that he's throwing, he's like on his toes. Jim Miller, whenever he wants to counter and throw a right hook at him, he's landing. Joe's like rushing in, behind his punches. Like he's never really sitting back on anything. So like he's throwing, let's say, like a left hook, and he's like completely out of his stance and in not a great defensive position, and like trying to land a right hand that's never going to land on target just because of the angle that it's coming from. And then even on one occasion, Jim Miller rocks him with a left hand in that first round, and Joe was able to no show it pretty well, but he immediately shoots the takedown and then pulls guard. And then once he is on his guard, he's not able to do much down there. I would have hoped to have seen a little bit more from him in that full guard. I think that if he gets to like these half guard positions or places like that, he'll be able to scramble up. But he lost that first round to Jim Miller. I think objectively, anybody watching that. So he's
Two
a
out of three
minus.
judges too.
He's like a minus 250 favorite there or so, or I think maybe minus 300 he got up to. And he loses that first round. And he's here against Jared. I mean, and Miller completely cooked, didn't even try to get up in the last 2 rounds, which was a bit disappointing for me, just as a big Jim Miller fan. And Joe had just a very easy time, didn't have to take any risk. And I think of the last 10 minutes, like 9 minutes and like 20 seconds of it, took place on the ground. There was no adversity there. I'm going to guarantee that Jared Gordon is going to be able to defend some of these takedowns, and there's going to be some more action that takes place on the feet. I think Gordon will not accept the bottom position. The biggest thing you have to avoid with Joe is letting him get on your back or transition into a lot of these positions. But Gordon's has a decent jab on the feet. I think his chin, you could say it's not great, but he got knocked out by Silva in that third round in a fight that he was winning, in my opinion, and tore his hamstring in the second round. Got knocked out by the lightweight champion and got caught in that really weird position against CDF. And then the other TKO is in CFFC, where it was like a cut stoppage that, in my opinion, should have kept going there. So Gordon, incredibly proven. I think he's undefeated in decisions, right? I think he's like 9-0 in decisions in a fight that it is favored to go the distance, in a fight where you haven't really seen Joe Solecki be able to push in the third round, where it's a contentious fight. In a fight where Jared Gordon, if you look at the handicap, the +3.5, just to take another line from there, it's very heavily juiced in Jared Gordon's favor, meaning they're expecting him to win a round. How can you end up on the Solecki side at juice, where you're mostly relying on him catching a submission over a guy who himself, I think he's a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, but Jared Gordon's been training for forever. He made his debut over 10 years ago in CFFC, blazed through that, beat John's old coach to defend the featherweight belt over there, and just brings an insane pace. I think this is a perfect foil for Joe. I think Joe could win this fight potentially, but it's going to be a dogfight, man. I think he's going to have to dig super deep. He's going to have to go for a lot of takedowns, and he's going to have to show a lot of improvement in terms of his boxing when he just fought maybe less than 6 months ago. So I just don't see it. I think Gordon's going to be able to. I think Gordon's a pretty good cage wrestler as well. He's able to put his back to the fence, get up, able to dig underhooks, and offensively wrestle as well. So I think he should watch out for the guillotine of Solecki. He does have a good one of those. He showed that on the Contender Series. And last point, Gordon's training down at Sanford MMA. Wrestling with Saul Rogers, with Yagos, with a guy from out of Minnesota that was like a four-time qualifier at 141. So
Chandler.
he's ready. Yeah, no, not I mean Chandler as well, but I'm just saying like a few guys that I know he's consistently working with. And I think this is a good fight for him overall. I think this is something that he knows he can win if he gets on top. I don't think Joe is going to be able to easily submit him, and it'll be, I think it's gonna be a good scrap. But I like Gordon. I think he should be the favorite here. And I don't see why people are so inclined to bet Joe at minus money.
So I agree with everything Ozzy said. Got a track bet on Gordon here, 1.5 units plus 135. And it seems like we might be getting a little buyback, so we might have to add a little bit more on Gordon. Um, so I think there are some pretty concrete things about this fight, and that's Gordon is the better striker. Gordon is the more damaging striker. I mean, Solecki, I don't think has ever hurt someone with a strike in his MMA career, so it's pretty assumed that the striking is going to be going Jared Gordon's way, and that means that Solecki's going to have to get the fight to the floor to win. And I'm just not overly impressed with Solecki's wrestling. Like you said, he sometimes he pulls guard. He got top position on Miller in rounds 2 and 3, but after round 1, Miller is pretty much a corpse nowadays. Matt Wyman, same thing, a corpse. And I just think that the guys that Selecki has beaten aren't really overly impressive. And I think the guys Gordon have beaten are actually kind of underrated. Great point about what you said about Gordon and with decisions. I didn't know that, but I think every decision he's won unanimously. So it seems like he builds as the fight goes. He picks up that output as the fight goes. We saw that in the Chavez fight. Fight started off close, but as the fight went on, just the huge skill differential of Gordon was very evident there. He was taking Chavez down, outstriking him, pressuring him, landing good boxing shots. I mean, Jared Gordon is a very well-rounded fighter, and if he can defend these takedowns, these back take attempts, these submissions from Selecki, then he's going to be pretty safe to win this fight with his striking, with his cardio, with his good attritional work. The only scenarios I see Gordon losing are maybe this 155-pound weight class is really bad for him. He has struggled at 155 before with those bigger guys, but with Selecki, not a really damaging guy. The only times Jared Gordon has lost is by knockout. So I just don't see him, losing by knockout here. I don't think that Selecki's going to have that big of a jiu-jitsu advantage here. So I'll be siding with Gordon as well. I think he's more than capable of avoiding these takedown attempts and submission attempts, and he's going to beat Selecki up when the fight's on the feet. So I definitely like Gordon here as well. We're going to be on team Astoria Queens this weekend, and
There's
that's going
just
to
yeah,
bring it.
there's just
Go
no
ahead.
evidence of Joe being able to attack multiple difficult takedowns to finish in a round. There's just no evidence of him being able to do that, especially in a fight where he's going to have to bring out his boxing gloves in as well. So I love Jared Gordon in this position, and I think I might have been the reason that line went down from plus 135. Maybe.
Yeah, I might have been the reason too. You never know.
Uh,
John Stargarian could have been the reason too. We got a lot of homies on Gordon this weekend. That's going to take us to the main card fight, 155-pound division. Alexander Hernandez is a massive favorite here, minus 650. Mike Breeden plus 425 on the other side. I'll start this one off by just saying I think this line is really wide. I mean, I don't understand why the market loves Alexander Hernandez so much. He was just minus 200 and got 30-27 by Thiago Moises. And Moises is a solid fighter, but he's kind of, meat and potatoes. I mean, he's an orthodox striker. He's got solid boxing. Um, he really just outstruck Hernandez, picking him apart that entire fight. And I think Hernandez has this real big problem where he doesn't know the type of fighter he is. When he comes out aggressive in round 1, he's effective. That's how he beat Dariush, how he beat Gritzmacher, how he beat OAM. But when he tries to fight like a technical kickboxer, he stays at range. He has a low output, and the guy kind of gets picked apart at distance. That we saw it versus Drew Dober, we saw it versus Trinaldo, and we saw it in his last fight against Thiago Moises. So I really don't think that Hernandez is that good of a fighter. I think the market is way high on this guy. And going over the tape on Breeden, I think the guy is a solid fighter. I mean, I don't see any area where the guy is really weak. He's a solid offensive striker. He's got good takedown defense and get ups. I was actually really impressed with what I saw from him in terms of defensive grappling. He's got a good understanding of underhooks and defensive wrestling positions. And even when he gets taken down, he's good at exploding back up to the feet. And I think the guy is a solid defensive grappler. I think he's durable. We saw him take an absolute beating versus Romero. And when you see a fighter take a beating, I like to look at 2 things. Do they concede defeat? Do they kinda just accept they're gonna lose and try not to get knocked out? Or do they bite the mouthpiece, come forward, and try to win the fight even though they're hurt? And that's what Breeden did in that fight. He was coming forward, trying to make something happen, even though his leg was getting chewed off by, the leg kicks from Romero there. So, I think Breeden is competent enough in all areas of MMA to make this fight close. I think I would cap it closer to minus 350 maybe for Hernandez. Minus 650 I think is way out of control. I think whoever opened this line is just not respecting Breeden enough, and I'm interested to see if you think along the same lines, Ozzy. You think Breeden's all right, or you think I'm off on this one?
And I'm just completely done with Alex Hernandez. Like he totally fucked me in that Thiago Moises fight. Like close it. This is why I tell you closing line value is fake. Because I had like minus 160 on Hernandez, and then he got completely blown out of the water. I mean, this is a guy who he needs confidence to win fights. Like, in the first fight that he came in against Dariush, he had nothing to lose. So he's like, fuck it, I'm just gonna go ham. And we'll see what happens. Gritzmacher, he just destroys him, throws out, a ton of strikes and is able to knock him out. But he's a big bully. He saw Drew Dober when Drew Dober was not scared of him. He's completely wilted, and he was not liking that pressure. Trinaldo wasn't able to do much, but he stood up to him as well, and he didn't like that adversity. And then the same thing happened with Moises. Moises was completely clowning him in like those second and third rounds. It was completely embarrassing, to me, for a guy of Alex Hernandez's pedigree. I saw this guy against OAM, and I thought, whoa, this guy is legit. Like his wrestling was looking great. His transitions looked really good to me. His entries and all that. And I think here against Breeden, I guess his name Breeden. I think Breeden's all right. I was on him. I think he was super wide against or not, maybe not that wide against Romero. I thought that he had some good skills coming into that fight. He has some decent leg kicks. He has some a decent counter game. He'll stay at range, and he knows. I mean, I think his defense is good enough. He's not going to go in there and get completely wasted there. He's coming out of that camp with Kraus, so I think his wrestling. He's training with my boy Missouri Khabib, so I think he should be all right in terms of the grappling and the game plan wise. And Kraus has to know that, like I said, Alex Hernandez is a huge bully. If you stand up to the bully and you exchange shots and you're able to avoid the big one, you should be able to be in the fight. So, I mean, there's no chance that I would touch this guy at parlaying him or anything like that because of all of those intangibles and what I think is maybe missing upstairs. But I still think Alex Hernandez has big time potential. I think if he gets Breeden down, I think he should be able to dominate Breeden on the ground, even though Breeden is okay overall. But I think if they're on the feet for prolonged stretches, I think these guys are gonna probably be calf kicking each other and throwing a lot of leg kicks. But I do think Breeden can hang in there. And I think the over here has been getting bet. It was minus 155, minus 175 now. I think that potentially could be an angle because I think Breeden is tough, like you said. But it's definitely a stay away on the Hernandez side. And I'm hoping that Breeden could, stand up to the bully a little bit and we could get some fireworks going back and forth.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident that Breeden is gonna stuff shots. I don't think Hernandez is gonna get him shoulders flat on the mat. Maybe he'll get some cage push time, some ride time, but I'm pretty confident in Breeden's defensive grappling, and I think it's gonna be a striking fight. And I'll take Breeden at plus 400 or higher all day in a striking fight. So I'm gonna end up with a small bet on Breeden here. Takes us to the final women's fight on the card, a fight that was supposed to happen a couple months back. Aspen Ladd coming back at minus 270, Chiasson plus 230. Ladd hasn't fought in about almost 2 years, honestly. Been a long layoff. This fight was rescheduled. So, what are your thoughts on this one, Ozzy? I'm pretty sure that you're not going to be laying minus 270 on Aspen
No, no
Ladd here. Is
chance.
that safe to
No,
say?
for sure. I don't remember what this line was originally, but I think it was shorter than this.
It was. It was
Um,
minus 200.
it's 200. So I think I was betting Chie-San back then at like plus 175. So that lets you know right off the bat that I'm gonna take her here as well. I hate her haircut. I hate the colors that she does. I hate all that stuff about her. But I've seen some improvement on Macy. And I mean, it's easy to forget that this girl won the Ultimate Fighter. People thought that she was a legit prospect before. Aspen Ladd just beat up mostly grandmas, to be quite honest with you. She's super plotting, on the feet. That's why she got iced by Jermaine Durandamy so easily. She just like is just. It looks like she's jumping rope almost. Like, you know what I mean? Like she's just like she'll stand in place and it's like she or like treading water. I don't know. It's a weird approach that she has. But her takedowns. I was mentioning about the women's MMA and the kind of takedowns that they have, and Aspen Ladd is one of them that, most of her takedowns come from, her getting into the clinch. She'll be in the clinch and, she'll have good timing and she'll level change and then she'll try and run through girls or finish in the clinch. But she doesn't. I mean, her hands are terrible. Like I don't care that she knocked out Yana in that third round, which in the fight that I thought was 1-1 going into the third round. But I think her hands are terrible. I don't think her cardio is particularly great. And Macy, even though she got taken down by Marion Renault there in that fight a few times, she went to like outside Ashi, which is like a leg lock position, at one point and was able to transition that into a sweep. She did some okay things against Shayna Young in terms of like keeping underhooks and staying in educated positions. So I think people have a lot of the stain in their mind of that Lena Landsberg loss. But I mean, this price is just way too high. This is the most favored Aspen Ladd's been in any of her fights, I think, dating back to like that maybe when she beat one of the grandmas. I don't remember which one she's most favored over. But Macy has way better striking than Aspen Ladd. She has some power. She's a former 145er and she's plus 230 here. I mean, if I lose on this, I lose. But they're treating Aspen Ladd here like she and some people, your own boy from Philly, they say that she's a future champion. Man, I do not see it. So the biggest issue for Macy Chiasson is she's a little bit physically weak, I think, like in her core and stuff. Like she's a little floppy, which I think will be the reason Aspen Ladd wins this fight and takes her down, at certain points. But I just can't get behind wanting to back her in this at this price. Like, she was like 1-1 with Sajara going into round 3, and that fight was incredibly close. You could have argued that Sajara won that second fight that they fought, or maybe even the first one. I don't remember the first
No,
one all
no, it
that
was
much.
the second one. It was a draw actually.
Second, yeah,
Kajara won rounds 1 and 3, and then Ladd 10-8'd her in round 2. It should have been a
that
draw.
okay, that's what you're saying. But they scored the last round for Aspen Ladd, though, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
mistakenly.
I remember that Aspen Ladd like popped out in certain positions. She was like wrist riding her a little bit, throwing some ground and pound. But I mean, it's just like has not been dominant other than when she fought those grandmas. Like it's just a fact. And she's fighting a girl here who has a reach advantage on her, who is just as big as her, has a 6-inch reach advantage. It's taller than her, trains at a legit gym. She's out of Fortis, all right, as much as we want to talk bad about Fortis. And I
Their
just
record's good this year. Can't talk bad about them. They have
good
a good
this year,
record.
and she's been getting ready for this girl for like 6 months now. She's been getting ready for Aspen Ladd. Aspen Ladd's off an ACL reconstruction, hasn't fought in 2 years almost. Give me Macy Chiasson at this plus price, man.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this is a pretty shitty fight, but there's not much thought needs to go into this one, and that's Chiasson is the value side. You hit a lot of the good points here. Ladd almost 2 years without a fight, and she generally is in close fights. If she can't get that top position and unleash that ground and pound like she did on a few of her opponents, she really is not that good anywhere. I don't think her wrestling is that good. Her striking extremely sloppy. She's so hittable, and Aspen just strikes me as one of those fighters and her coaches who just won't really be honest with what they're seeing. And so she's coming off a win over Yana. She's coming off a knockout over her. I just feel like they probably thought everything went perfect in that fight, and there's nothing to improve on. Meanwhile, Ladd still showed a lot of weaknesses in that fight. And I just don't think that she's gonna improve. She kinda reminds me of Macy Barber, honestly. That'd be a fun matchup at some point in the future. Um, and Macy should win the striking here. I mean, she is a big, long southpaw. No, it says she's orthodox on UFC stats, but I thought she was a southpaw. And she can come out and bomb on you early. She can land some good strikes at distance and get you out of there. She's decent on top as well with her ground and pound. This fight probably comes down to, can Ladd take her down or not? If she can, I think Macy could struggle with getting put on bottom and staying there. But Ladd's takedowns are not good. She's not a smart fighter. She doesn't have smart ways to get into the clinch to get those takedowns. So I think that Chiasson is the side. I agree with Ozzy here. Plus 230, probably worth a half unit bet or something like that. I don't have any extreme confidence in Macy Chiasson. I just don't think that Ladd should be plus or minus 270 in this spot. So I'll agree with you there. Value side all over Chiasson. And that's going to move us to the next fight, which is in the middleweight division, where we have Krzysztof-Jotko as the minus 145 favorite, Misha Cirkunov plus 125. I noted that this fight is kind of funny. It's kind of like fighters that are pretty opposites of one another. Jotko is a low medium output striker. Fights have a lot of cage pushing. They very typically go to the decision. He hasn't finished anyone in over 5 years. Cirkunov is extremely aggressive, extremely volatile. His fights are always finishing in round one. He hasn't gone out of round one in over 5 years. He's been in the UFC for 6 or 7 years, has never seen a decision once. So the guy is just the epitome of, kill or be killed, very aggressive style. And it's interesting to see how they're going to clash here, because you got one guy who shows virtually no aggression versus one guy who all he knows is aggression. And Cirkunov's biggest problem has been his chin. He's gotten hurt and knocked out several times in the UFC. But Jocko, not known for being a big hitter. He doesn't really sit down on his punches. He's not the guy to throw a huge amount of strikes. His past few decision wins, you can look, he only landed 50 or 60 strikes in those fights. So he's not really the type of guy to justify his price tag, especially as a favorite. Jocko is not a bad guy to stab on as a dog or something, but backing them at minus 150, I don't think he's the fighter who you want to be doing that. Yeah, looking at his past two decision wins, he landed 40 strikes versus Bayut, 66 versus Anders. Not a high volume there. And Cirkunov might be able to take him down. Cirkunov's a competent boxer, competent wrestler, very good jiu-jitsu skill on the ground. And I think that I got to side with Cirkunov here based on the aggression, especially in terms of a pre-fight bet, because I'm pretty sure Cirkunov's going to come at him in round one, be very aggressive. He might get a takedown. He might hurt Jocko. And there's a good chance that he finishes Jocko straight out in round one. But if the fight gets out of round one, you do have to sort of favor Jocko to slow the fight down, get the fight at more of his speed, and win a decision in rounds two or three. But pre-fight, I like the plus money on Cirkunov. I'm not confident that he's gonna cash that ticket, but I think that he will possibly be the live favorite in the betting lines in round one here. So I'll slightly lean towards Cirkunov being the side here, plus 125. What are you thinking about Cirkunov's drop down to middleweight here, Ozzy?
Okay. I cannot I don't know how you're trusting Misha Cirkunov. I cannot get there at all in my brain. I was going back to watch Jocko fights and see like how he reacts to the grappling and stuff like that. I watched that David Branch fight, and you see there's a few times where David Branch was able to just like time, Jocko like throwing a kick or a punch or whatever, and just tackle him to the ground. Which I thought, oh, okay, maybe Cirkunov could do that, and then once he's on top, start throwing some ground and pound and stuff. But the thing is, Cirkunov, man, he does not even have good control, man. He does have good control. He panics if he starts losing positions. He doesn't throw a lot of ground and pound once he's on top. And Jocko, for everything, I think he's pretty well rounded. I think he's got in the grappling areas, he does pretty smart things overall. He even has some counter grappling. He's landed a few takedowns in his UFC career. He actually averages more than one takedown a round or a fight, excuse me, if you're a big stat guy. But I don't think that'll probably be the case here. But the thing is, Cirkunov's just a mental midget to me, man. Like a bunch of his fights, like Even that Jimmy Crute fight, he was getting destroyed. I don't know what Jimmy Crute was doing, wanting to stay on top of him. And then even when after he gets swept, he's sitting on his back, throwing punches at Misha Cirkunov from his butt. Didn't make any sense at all.
Great
And
squeeze
just
though.
a great sweep, but the thing is, like, I don't see him getting that sweep on Krzysztof-Jotko. I think this fight will be competitive for a little bit, more than likely, but then Jocko's just gonna start being too quick for him. I feel, I think there'll be some cage hugging, but I've never even been impressed by Misha Cirkunov's takedowns. For me at all, like that much. Like I think he's a brute overall. He's not overly technical with the takedowns. He doesn't really have great leg attacks. And I think Jocko, if he is getting in on his legs, I think Jocko's going to be able to out athlete him. So it's going to have to be some clinch takedowns from Misha. I think Jocko starts, getting away from him at a certain point, just starts punching his face off, probably hitting him with a few calf kicks here and there. And I mean, Misha's gonna be a corpse at 185. Let's be honest. It's not. I don't think it's gonna go well for him overall. He was talking about how he wants to have a reach advantage when he fights, and he's gonna have that at middleweight. But guess what? Jocko's got the same reach as you, bro. So I think Jocko's gonna be able to keep this guy at the end of his range. Misha's gonna blow his wad early, and then Jocko's probably gonna run away with it, maybe finish him. I don't know, but you can never put something past Misha in terms of getting finished. So maybe like a Jocko round 3 for me.
Yeah, I think pure pick wise, I'll probably still lean Jocko decision. Like you said, it's hard to be really confident with a bet on Cirkunov, with how fragile he is. And, cutting an extra 20 pounds can't be good for that chin. So that's going to move us along to the welterweight division where we have Nico Price minus 181 taking on Alex Cowboy Oliveira. Ton of action. Oh, excuse me. Oliveira's plus 156. A ton of action came in on Nico Price this week. I mean, he was minus 135 for 3 weeks. If you look on Bet Online, minus 135 for 3 weeks, and all of a sudden he gets absolutely steamed this past week, all the way down to minus 181. Um, I get it. Some people seem like it seems like Alex Oliveira might be shot. He did get hurt in both of his most recent fights and get finished in both of them. But I think Randy Brown and Shavkat are a lot better fighters than Nico Price is. But it's still fair to question where Alex Oliveira is, where his durability's at. I definitely think his durability has taken a hit. He can't take a shot the same way he used to. And the guy's always been a wild fighter, very random, doesn't really fight with much process. And, late in your career when you've taken a ton of damage, when you can't withstand those big shots and create chaos, that style is just not good. And I think Oliveira aging, his style has gotten a lot worse. And Nico Price has actually been hanging around with some pretty tough competition lately. Had close striking fights with Vicente Luque, with Michel Pereira, and I think that Price is going to be landed in the harder shots here. I think he has more power of the two, but he's also pretty defensively void. He's very easy to take down. Michel Pereira hit a takedown or two on him. So if Oliveira wants to go in here with the best game plan, I think it would probably be to wrestle. Honestly, I don't think that things are going to go too well for him on the feet. I just don't think you can trust his output or his durability. So the striking, I do think favors Nico, but Price's takedown defense is quite bad. So if Oliveira comes in with the right game plan to grapple heavy, he could pull off a grappling victory here. But Price, not the type of guy to back at minus 180. So Cowboy is the side. It's just a question of, do you want to place a wager on him and maybe gamble that he's not shot? Maybe he still has a little bit left in the tank. So very fun matchup though. And Jack Slack pointed this out. The fight to have a point deduction is 35-1 in this fight. Price is always eye poking people. Oliveira is always committing fouls. I like that for a stab here over on DraftKings. I'll pass this over to you, Ozzy.
Yeah, I mean, Alex Oliveira's never been knocked out, never lost by knockout. I think the main thing that people are seeing on the Nico
Yes, he
Price
has.
side,
He lost to
I
Yancy Medeiros by knockout.
don't think he did. Pretty sure that's incorrect.
Definitely think he
Anyways,
did. Yeah, he
no,
did.
no, he didn't.
Huge knowledge advantage for the Martian. All right, but go on.
He didn't. Where do you see that? Yancy Medeiros? They
Not
never even fought.
yeah, they did. That's literally one of my favorite UFC fights ever. Medeiros knocked him
Anyway,
out in round 3.
anyway. That was the
Casual.
only time then. That was the only time. So, yeah, one time, my bad, one time. They must have just updated that shit. Uh, so anyway, so the main thing for Nico on the Nico Price side is the volume. I think that people are looking at Alex Oliveira very low volume, Nico Price very high volume. Alex Oliveira is like doing that karate Gunnar Nelson kind of style. Um, trying to stay on the outside and be a sniper. So Nico Price probably gonna get in his face. I could see why this fight will probably get finished in some way. I think that's heavily favored, but I just can't. I mean, Price, juice on Nico Price, I just can't do it. He's just too volatile of a guy. He does really dumb stuff. He'll be he could lose a 30-27 decision, and he'll be like trying to hold his hands up at the end of it. Like you just can't trust him. I don't think that he will come out here with that good of a game plan. He looked a little bit scared of Michelle Pereira. Honestly, no shade to him because I'd be scared of that guy too. But just he didn't look normal to me in those first two rounds. And I think Alex Oliveira, two losses in a row. I think this is the time to buy low on him. This is a better price that you would have got versus Shavkat or Randy Brown, a much better price actually, and I think this is a decent buy low spot for him. If he does come here, behind his jab, maybe shooting takedowns, cage hugging, pushing him against the fence, looking to land those clinch strikes, I think he could beat Nico Price. But I'm not confident in either of these guys. If this price keeps going up, I'm gonna be forced, like literally forced, to bet on Alex Oliveira. But I see the bet splits here. I think the last time I checked on Bet MMA, it was like 50 bets on Nico Price, 4 bets on Alex Oliveira, which is kind of crazy to me. I don't know where all the chatter for Nico Price is coming from. This guy does not win fights at all. When he wins fights, like he's clearly losing them.
Kind of
Uh,
meme, yeah.
yeah, he's clearly losing even when he wins. Like his last win was against James Vick. He was losing until he won. I don't even remember the Tim Means fight, but I'm pretty sure he was
He was
losing that
losing.
fight.
Yeah.
And then the Randy Brown fight, he hammer fisted him from bottom and cost me a lot of money. So I just don't see it. I can't get behind it. So I'll probably be on Alex Oliveira, and I do think he has a decent path to victory.
Yeah, good points about Price's recent. I mean, his recent wins all have been kind of some crazy come from behind. But what I like about him is even when he's in tough fights that he loses, he actually does compete the entire time. The Michel fight, he did lose the first 2 rounds, but he came right at Michel and won round 3 of that fight. So I found that pretty impressive for him to come back and win that last round. I like Price in general. I would be a little upset to see Oliveira go. So honestly, I kind of hope Oliveira gets back on track with the win to keep him around for a bit longer. And that's going to take us to the co-main event of the evening in the middleweight division. We got Kevin Holland minus 170, Kyle Daukaus plus 145. You can start this one off, Ozzy. What are your thoughts on the co-main event?
So I like Dawkins overall as a fighter. He's been frustrating for me on a number of occasions, especially the Brendan Allen fight. But I just think his tendencies overall will probably play a good role here, like will play to his advantage. Typically, in the past, I've seen him land some really good strikes and be looking good on the feet, and then force the grappling. I think that happened versus Hawes. That happened definitely against Brendan Allen, and it has even happened on the regional scene for him. And I think here that's actually a good thing if he forces the grappling against Kevin Holland, because we know Kevin Holland on the mat is not great, gives up tons of positions, is very just nonchalant with his defense, does not dig underhooks, kind of just is like, oh yeah, if you take me down, I'm gonna get back up. Is his mindset, and I think against a guy in Kyle Dawkins who has eight wins by submission, that's gonna be a bad idea for him. I think people are saying that Kevin Holland survived on the ground against GM3, and all these other guys, and they say, oh, this, he's good on the mat. It's gonna be fine. The I don't think that's gonna be the case here. Although I will say there's been a few positions that Kaldakis gets into on the ground that he's just a little bit lazy. If you look at that Dustin, I'm not even gonna pronounce his last name.
Stolfus.
Whatever, the German guy. Kyle Dawkins is on top of him at some certain points, and he's like on his knees, not doing anything, and the other guy is not doing anything either. Those are going to be positions where potential Jacare scenario comes up where Holland's just throwing punches from his back, like you saw again, like Marvin Vettori and Derek Brunson. The guy's just going buck wild from the bottom. But I don't really care the fact that he lost to Marvin Vettori and Derek Brunson. You could be like, oh, well, he survived the whole. Doesn't really matter, man. He got dominated. He lost clearly both of those fights, and he had massive holes in his game, and that was both of those fights were within 6 months ago. So you can say it's a higher level and all this stuff. It doesn't matter because he has not shored up that part of his game at all. I think that Daukaus here on the feet, I'm hearing people saying that Kevin Holland's gonna have a speed advantage, everything like that. I don't really see that being the case. I think that Kyle Daukaus throws some pretty good snappy punches. I think his speed is all right. I think that Kevin Holland slows down just as much as Kyle Daukaus slows down. So I think there are multiple paths to victory for Kyle. I think he can get to the clinch here and take Holland down pretty easily. I think he can get in on the legs and take Holland down for sure. And then if they're at range, I think Holland has probably the kicking advantage. But Kyle's got some good boxing. He's a southpaw, which Holland has fought a number of southpaws thus far in his career. So won't be that much of an issue for him. But I mean, the boxing of Kyle Daukaus is better than Derek Brunson's to me. So I think that this is a pretty evenly matched fight. The line is continuing to move in Kevin Holland's favor, which I think is probably fair. But I'll have probably a piece of Kyle Daukaus if this goes above plus 155, and then definitely maybe some stabs at his props here because I think he's gonna be able to bring a fight to Holland. I think he's tough enough to not get finished. And if you're in an extended fight against Kevin Holland, it's only a matter of time before the guy makes a mistake, especially if you guys are grappling.
Yeah, so I'll be siding with Daukaus here too as the underdog. The bet that interests me the most in this fight is fight going the distance. It's only minus 128, which is 55%. That means this fight ends by finish 45% of the time. I think that's way, way too high. The most likely prop finish is Holland by knockout. Daukaus is extremely durable. Uh, Holland is a noodly striker at best. I mean, the guy does have some pop in his punches, but I don't think the guy is a traditionally good striker at all. So I think that prop value is way off. I think this fight goes the distance like way, way higher. I mean, I think it could be closer to 70%, honestly, for the decisions here. So what would that be? Quarter Cali, what would that be, Ozzy? About like a 30 unit bet or
A
something like
lot,
that? Yeah.
a lot.
But so getting down to the matchup, I think I mean we saw it very proven in his past two fights. Kevin Holland is not a guy who takes matchups seriously. He doesn't really realize what his opponent's game plan is. He doesn't seem to take his opponent's threats very seriously. And we saw that getting taken down in every single round versus Marvin, every single round versus Derek, just completely dominated. I think he really embarrassed himself in those fights, honestly, with how bad he did. Um, and then the UFC goes and re-signs him to a new contract. He was in the middle of a contract, and the UFC went out of their way to give Kevin Holland a new contract before this fight. And he's blabbering this week how he thinks fighter pay is overrated. The conversation about fighter pay isn't worthy of being discussed. So I mean, the guy is just such an idiot. I have a hard time backing him at minus 170 here. I mean, outside of round one finishes, Kevin Holland is just not a guy you want to be backing at minus 170. He's not a very thoughtful fighter who fights with much process or much of a game plan. So trusting him at over 60%, I think is really dumb, especially against Daukaus, who is a well-rounded fighter. The guy is a tricky southpaw boxer, like you said, definitely got some snap on his punches. He is a decent wrestler. I think he's a better jiu-jitsu grappler than he is a wrestler, but the guy can still get the fight to the floor. He has wrestled in all four of his most recent fights. He did not successfully take down Phil Hawes, but he did take down Allen and Stolfutz in the Lombardo in the Contender Series. So the guy is a pretty dedicated wrestler, and any dedicated wrestler against Kevin Holland, I'm willing to take because the guy's takedown defense, his get ups are just so bad. And it really seems like he accepts being on bottom. So if a guy's going to try to put him on bottom, I think that could be a potential round winner. So I got to side with Daukaus here. I think that Daukaus is the money line side. And I think that goes the distances could be the best bet of the fight on either side. I know Holland fights are a bit chaotic and wild at times, but I honestly think Daukaus submission is the most likely finish of anything here. And that I only rate, 10-15%. So what about goes the distance? Do you think there's any value there?
Uh, I mean, I guess I think maybe a little bit, but I think the Kevin Holland's gonna be aggressive. I think that Kyle Dawkins is gonna choke him out. To be honest with you, I think
Yeah.
he's going to. I think he's choking this dude. He putting Kevin Holland to sleep.
Daukaus submission plus 700 on FanDuel right now.
That is, I will be betting that.
Um, Next fight is a fight that doesn't have any value on goes the distance for sure. Light heavyweight division. We got Thiago Santos minus 153, Johnny Walker plus 133 in this one. And, not a fight that requires a whole lot of analysis. I'm sure I don't think anyone has some revolutionary read on this fight. It should be a clusterfuck of a fight, honestly. They should come at each other in round one, swing wild, and one guy is probably going to fall and get finished in the first round here. The only instances I see this fight leaving round one is if Thiago Santos decides to clinch, decides to wrestle, and he has done that at times. He did hit a brief takedown on Manoa. He might have taken down Kevin Holland as well, won that fight with his top game. And the only times Walker's fight leave round one is when opponents try to take him down, like Henrique on the Contender Series, like Nikita Krylov, who put on a wrestling clinic versus him. So unless Santos decides to grapple, this fight really should end in round one. Walker is so wild and aggressive. He knows no other way besides coming out stupid aggressive in round one and either being finished or getting a finish or getting finished himself. So I'll side with Thiago Santos. I know the guy hasn't looked good since the knee surgery, but those are against guys who are trying to grapple him. Glover Teixeira, Alexander Rakic, those guys are top 5 light heavyweights. And this is a huge step down in competition, and it's not a guy who's going to attempt to grapple him in any world. So Santos should be the better, much better experience. I think he's got the better striking technique, and I think he'll do well in these chaotic exchanges, kind of like the Manoa fight. So I'm siding with Santos here. Would love to see him get back on track, but not really a fight that you can bet money line wise. I think it's just too chaotic to be laying any bets on the money line here. A lot of people are on the fight doesn't start round 3, 4, 5. Those are probably good. Those probably win. What are your thoughts on the main event, Ozzy?
I mean, I know you guys really like those props, not starting those, distant rounds. But I mean, Thiago Santos just not been doing that much. And like in that Rakic fight, he just looked like a shell of himself. Didn't look very interested in that fight. And then in the Glover Teixeira fight, I know he landed a bunch of shots. I think it was at the end of the first round or something, and then in that third round. But I don't know, I don't I'm not very confident in Thiago Santos. I actually like Johnny Walker here maybe a little bit to just do what he does, I mean the thing is with Santos is when he is coming at you and with blood in his eyes, like he's completely open to getting turned off himself. He just throwing shots, his chin is in the air and he has tremendous power, but Johnny Walker, he knows us coming to him. I have to imagine, like, and he's, I think is going to be able to stand in place and throw shots back at him. In his last 2 fights, in his last 3 fights, but let's just say last 2 fights, the guys were trying to take him down and were succeeding, right? Krylov and Ryan Spann. I don't think that Thiago Santos is going to want to do that. I think that'll tax his gas tank. And I think that, with Walker's 6-inch reach advantage, I think that Santos is gonna be in danger coming inside. So I'm just gonna pick Johnny Walker just for fun. I will not bet this unless this price goes back up and people are really confident in Thiago. But I've got no confidence in Thiago. I got no confidence in backing him at 60% at all. But I hope that someone gets knocked out so you guys make money on those finishing props.
Yeah, should take into consideration Ozzy. What is your record on main events? Yeah, you have
Not
a
good, not
not
good.
good,
But
not
like,
good.
not good. This is not good. It's not good. I don't know, but
I'm
that's
pretty
why
good.
I
I'm
don't
pretty
get
good with main
involved.
event.
But
I'm
but
pretty good with main.
not. Thiago Santos at -160. Well, I'll tell you, I got Thiago Santos last time he main evented. I got that one right. So
On Glover, right?
we're all over
Yeah.
Glover.
Well, for sure, but he was also -160 in that fight. That was a
This is
year
the
ago.
only time. This is the only time in Johnny Walker's career he's been plus money.
Is that
How about
true?
that?
What
How about
about
that?
his most recent one against Span? He was favorite?
It was favored in that fight.
That's
How about
pretty
that?
crazy.
How
That's
about that?
interesting. But I mean, the market has been insane. No, he was dog to Khalil Roundtree.
Sure.
Yeah, for sure. Just looked it up. Closed plus 145.
Right. Since he killed Khalil, that was wrong. Or if we rewind that now after seeing Khalil 3 years later break a guy's leg with
We
a
don't do
front
that.
kick,
We
the
don't
front
reline.
kick was that Khalil bet plus EV? Like some guys will reline like didn't we don't reline that far back? Oh my bad.
No, no, no.
Only 1
3
year.
years.
Only
3
1
years
year.
is out of my statute of limitations.
Okay, my
Um,
bad.
for sure. I wonder. I think I've predicted almost every main event right since we've done the podcast. I think
This fight
we got
this fight
Barbosa wrong.
don't even need to watch this fight because it's just gonna be, hey, this guy hit his win condition, so it's whatever.
Yeah, someone's hitting their win condition in round one here. I think it's Thiago Santos.
I don't
But
think I don't think Santos is knocking him out in the first round. That'll be my take for the fight. I do not think Thiago Santos finishes this in round one.
all
That's
right,
my pick for the fight.
I think you will. All right, that's gonna do it for the podcast. Mediocre 13 fight card, but still a few decent fights sprinkled in there. Only bet I have tracked so far is Astoria's own Jared Gordon, and might end up with some other action, but not going to be a huge card of bets for me. And any closing thoughts, Ozzy?
No, I got Jared Gordon, and I'll have a number of bets here.
Oh yeah,
Not
Breeden.
not
I'll be
huge,
on
but
Breeden.
I'll have a pretty good amount sprinkled around here, and I'm looking
Sorry
for
about
some props. Looking for
sorry
some
about the
prop action.
motorcycle noise in the background, but that's going to do it for the podcast. Thank you all for listening. Thanks to everyone showing support, liking the videos, and showing love on Twitter. Thank you to everyone who's tuning in on a weekly basis. And I hope you all are using the information to make some money, win some bets, and I hope you all enjoy the fights this weekend. I'll see you before the next UFC card. Peace.